Fear is not the reason your life is stuck. It is the reason you keep obeying limits that were never real. Every opportunity you avoided, every conversation you postponed, every risk you refused to take, fear was there, quietly convincing you that staying small was safer than becoming powerful. And the most dangerous part, you believed it. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the mind becomes what it repeatedly thinks about. If your thoughts are dominated by fear, your entire life begins to shrink around it. But the Stoics understood something most people never learn. Fear is not an enemy to eliminate. It is a signal. And once you understand that signal, fear loses its power over you. By the end of this video, you will understand why fear controls nearly every decision you make, how it secretly destroys your confidence, and the Stoic method for turning fear into strength. Because the men you admire are not fearless. They simply stopped obeying fear. Most people think fear is a warning that they should stop. The Stoics saw it differently. Fear appears when you are standing at the edge of growth, before you speak up, before you take a risk, before you ask for what you want, before you leave what is comfortable. Fear rises because part of you senses that your identity is about to change, and the ego hates uncertainty. It would rather keep you trapped in familiar misery than expose you to temporary discomfort. This is why so many men remain invisible. They stay quiet when they should speak. They tolerate disrespect. They avoid rejection. They postpone action, not because they lack ability, but because fear convinces them that discomfort is dangerous. Epictetus taught that men are disturbed not by events, but by the judgments they make about them. The event itself is neutral. The fear comes from the story you attach to it. You imagine humiliation, failure, loss, embarrassment, and then you react to those fantasies as if they were facts. This is where fear gains control, not in reality, but in imagination. Seneca warned that we suffer more in our minds than in reality. Think about how many times you delayed something important, only to discover that the experience was far less terrifying than you expected. The conversation, the interview, the rejection, the challenge. The pain was never as severe as your mind predicted. Yet most people continue surrendering to possibilities that never happen. And that surrender has consequences. Every time you obey fear, you send yourself a message. I cannot handle this. I am not strong enough. I need safety more than growth. Over time, this becomes your identity. Confidence does not disappear overnight. It erodes with every avoided challenge. This is why some men appear naturally powerful. They are not immune to fear. They have trained themselves to move while afraid. That is the secret. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is disciplined action in its presence. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that the obstacle is the way. What you fear most often contains the exact lesson you need. The difficult conversation builds self-respect. The rejection builds resilience. The uncertainty builds trust in yourself. The risk builds strength. Fear marks the doorway to expansion, and most people spend their lives standing outside that door. So how do Stoics destroy fear? First, they separate what they control from what they do not. You cannot control outcomes. You cannot control other people's opinions. You cannot control whether you succeed immediately. But you can control your decision to act, and action is where power begins. Second, they rehearse the worst-case scenario. Seneca intentionally imagined loss, failure, and discomfort. Not to become pessimistic, but to realize that survival was still possible. When you see that you can endure the worst, fear weakens. Third, they practice voluntary discomfort. Cold showers, hard workouts, difficult conversations, intentional challenges. These teach your mind a profound truth. Discomfort is not danger. It is training. And here is what happens when you stop obeying fear. Your voice becomes steadier. Your decisions become sharper. Your confidence becomes rooted in evidence. You no longer need certainty before taking action. You trust yourself to adapt. People notice this because real strength is not loud. It is calm under pressure. It is the ability to face uncertainty without retreating. It is the refusal to let fear dictate your identity. The man who conquers fear does not become reckless. He becomes free. Free to speak, free to lead, free to pursue what matters, free to live according to his values instead of his anxieties. Fear will never disappear completely. Even Marcus Aurelius felt doubt. Even the strongest men feel hesitation. The difference is that they no longer treat fear as a command. They treat it as a test. And every time they act despite it, they become harder to control. Remember this: your greatest opportunities are hidden behind the emotions you avoid. The life you want requires walking directly toward what scares you. Fear is not proof that you should stop. It is proof that you are approaching the edge of transformation. And the moment you stop obeying fear, you begin to rule your life.